Alongside Brent Hubbs, I'm Austin Price. The Volquest.com positional previews wrap up today with the coaching staff. And a little bit of movement this offseason. Joey Halsley moves up to the OC as Alex Golish departs. And Tennessee kind of becomes normal again because no one really has that OC who's a tight ends coach, whereas that's how it's been the last couple of years. Now your OC is your quarterback's coach, which is a pretty normal setup. Alec Ablin shifts into the tight ends role. And that was a hire of comfort, of knowledge in the system, and you hope that that's a big help this fall as he can kind of tandem with Ellerby in the run game for the tight ends, and then again knowing the system with those older tight ends.
Yeah, I mean it was from a continuity standpoint and continuing on with the progression of your offense, it made the most sense. The recruiting aspect of it with Alec Ablin remains to be seen. We'll see what that looks like as he learns on the job there. But a guy who's very comfortable in the run game. We'll see exactly where he is in terms of development with the passing game. He's got a couple of guys he's got to get progressed quickly. When you talk about McCollin Castles, who's experienced on some NFL boards, a lot of people think he's really talented. How quick can Alec Ablin get him up to speed in this offense? And then Ethan Davis, who had a nice spring under Ablin, how quick can he progress? Both of them in particular in run game and blocking and their physicality there. Then for Joey Halsley, he's got the title, but we know that Josh Heupel, I'm not saying Joey Halsley's not going to be game planning. I'm not saying he's not going to call some plays, but we know this thing's going to run through Josh Heupel till he's completely comfortable with somebody else doing some things. And I don't know that he's ever going to be completely comfortable with somebody else calling his offense.
No, you're exactly right about that. I think that where this staff has its biggest growth is on the defensive side of the ball, because I think some of those young defenders have a real chance to blossom. And I think Tim Banks has done a really good job. Everybody, people don't realize how good the defense was a year ago with a bunch of just kind of, okay guys. Tennessee gave up less than 30 points in 10 of their 13 games. One of those three was the Florida game where you're literally handing it off, trying to get it to triple zeros on offense and then shoving your defense back out there, that was gassed. And Florida had a couple of late touchdowns to get over 30. If you're not allowing more than 30 points with Josh Heupel's offense, even if it's not what it was a year ago, you're going to have a pretty good shot. I think with more talent, they got a real chance to take a real step this year because of the continuity on the defensive side and further development.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see that development really on display because Brian Jean-Marie now has a lot of linebacker bodies to work with. Some young guys, how far do they come along? Keenan Peely stepping in there. He's got more options than he's had. Willie Martinez at corner's got more options than he's ever had. Now, is he going to play veterans or is he going to play the more athletic
Biggest
guys?
Question.
That's a huge question. Same for Tim Banks at the safety position with that. And then up front, we know Rodney Garner's a really good coach, right? We know he's a good developer. We know he's going to play a lot of bodies. I'm curious to see what kind of influence the addition of Robert Ayers has just for those Leos to pass rush, just to see where Joshua Joseph, his pass rush grows from year one to year two, right? What do those guys look like across the board as edge rushers where Tennessee really has to grow defensively?
Let's talk more about the head coach. In year two, he goes 11-2. We head into year three. But the one thing I can say about Heupel that I think is a huge compliment is he's not changed who he is. He's not altered anything and how he kind of operates. He's kind of got his way of doing things, and he sticks to it.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And they're building on the plan. I think he knows they haven't arrived. I think they feel better, obviously, on the defensive side, as we've talked about. Offensively, it's going to be about what does he get out of his quarterback. He's always had good, successful quarterbacks. Those guys have particularly grown in year two in the system or year three in the system. Joe Milton's been in the system for a couple of years, but now he's going to get to go and play a lot. It was all mop-up duty last year. He played well, but how do they adapt and adjust this offense to fit Joe Milton's style? They always talk about it being interchangeable.
Yeah.
We can adapt to whatever style of quarterback we got. He's not Hendon Hooker. He's different. What do they call differently? How do they do things differently schematically with Joe Milton versus Hendon Hooker? I think it's going to be really interesting to watch, particularly early in the year.
Yep, they're pulling out the playbook going, okay, we're adapting to Howitzer mode because that's what Joe has. He's Brent Hubbs. I'm Austin Price. That's a look at the Volquest.com positional previews. We wrapped it up with coaching. Fall camp is just around the corner.